My name's Sam. I've had the great pleasure of being the producer of the Hamish and Andy radio show since 2004, very long time, and I've seen the two blokes I'm about to welcome out here put more time, effort and energy into the craft of radio than any other performers I've ever worked with. So it's a great pleasure to ask them some questions today, and you guys will also get a chance to ask them some questions. But first, give them a round of applause, Hamish and Andy.
So much. Thank you. Thank you. Good on you. I hope forgetting your glasses doesn't throw you.
Yes,
Thank you.
I did forget my glasses today, so this could be interesting. All right, boys, thanks for being here. I thought I'd just kick things off, I guess, by going back to the beginning of your career and just asking, back in the early days, was there any habits or processes you think that started you off well back in the early days?
There was probably ones that started us off poorly.
Yeah.
And then we changed. The one that first comes to mind is when we first started at Fox. We would tell each other what we're going to say.
To the letter. We would show each other, I'm going to do 3 jokes, and then that's going to be joke number 3. Okay. I'm expecting a big old laugh there, and then we should get out. So that probably, but I mean, and you know, in radio in general, that I guess everyone starts out that way because that was sort of born of a nervousness or, you know, just a fear that you're leaping into this abyss, and as everybody knows that makes radio, you know, you're hoping to have a conversation where you're both on the same wavelength and finding the same things funny, and it builds and builds and builds, and you go out on a laugh. And the natural instinct is to go, well, if we put heaps of effort and work and precision and planning into that, then that should make it better. When in actual fact, you know, as time goes on, you realise that that's probably one way to kill a genuine moment on radio. So
it was different for us because there's a lot of people that still tell each other what they're going to say, and it works really well for them. We're terrible actors, and we took the fun out of it for us. So the way our show works now, and we eventually got there through trial and error, but we don't tell each other anything we're going to say, and you go out there genuinely excited every single day. It takes a lot of trust in your partner. It also takes a lot of trust on the producing team. We certainly can run ideas past the producing team, but when we get to 4 o'clock, it's an adventure.
So I suppose that from a habit perspective too, just thinking about it, it's about finding that magic balance between prep and leaving enough spontaneity in the show. So for us, we've found, you know, there's sort of 2 ends of the spectrum, over-prepared and not prepared at all. Not prepared at all is also
dangerous.
Just sounds shit. So it's about going, and so for our show, and this is different for every show, but for our show, as Sammy would know, you know, every mic break, we'll just have one word or one line of what we want to do in that slot. And for us, that works. About 1 sentence to describe 5 minutes of content seems to be about the right ratio for us. Yep. But it took a fair bit of trial and error to figure that out.
Would you want to then talk about our planning meetings and how much time each of you spend actually outside the room?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, this has evolved over the years too.
But yeah, we get in around about 1, and then basically half the planning meeting I'm out on the outside playing on iPhone games, and the other half, Hamish is outside.
Tinder's not really a game, but it can be.
So yeah, it's because the excitement for us now that we're so comfortable with each other is that whatever we're going to say, I want Hamish to hear it for the first time. It was the same with our TV projects as well. We wanted those genuine first-time moments. Hamish and I prefer to work in the real moments, and we love surprising each other. And it's kind of what I love about radio is that I'm genuinely going to be surprised every single day. So,
I mean, we'll get to this in due course. But for us, really the number one sort of critical theme that we always try and make sure we hit and are in check with is that level of authenticity. And so if this is just yesterday's show, it's not the greatest example of all time, but I had a chicken suit built that I was very passionate about. But I really wanted that first moment when Andy saw it to be authentic because that's the real reaction. And what we're trying to give, what we try and do in our show every afternoon is to try and hit that level of authenticity so we're all enjoying the same moment as the listeners at the same time. And I think, again, the trap to just make sure that, nothing goes wrong that you can fall into is over-preparing something and then having to kind of fake or reenact a genuine reaction when it comes around to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So trying to keep that authenticity and that realness as a present, really, that you're giving the other guy on the show, because they're the funnest moments when something happens for real. We take that really seriously. So I know when I get kicked out of the meeting for half an hour, it's a good thing because I'll be given some sort of present that afternoon. I mean, it can usually be a highly embarrassing situation, but that's the fun. We know that when 4 o'clock happens, we're not just trying to recreate something funny that happened in the meeting. We've saved the fireworks for the afternoon.
And I think,
The other thing on that, Semi, is that going right back to when, I think late 2006, first year of Drive, for me personally, I remember wanting to compete for laughs and wanting to be, the funny guy and stupid with Haim in there. But the time I realised that, what's a laugh for either of us, a laugh for the team, was just this liberating feeling. And I kind of feel like that's when the show came into its own a bit. We naturally found our roles. No one ever sat down and said, you do this and you do that. But it suddenly became effortless. And I think that was a habit I personally got out of. And then the search for content wasn't about what I could do or what I could say that was funny. It was actually started thinking about the opposite. And I'm sure Haim was doing the same. Where he's like, I wonder what Haim will have fun with. And so you start bringing to the show content that you actually don't know where it's going to go, but I just find areas and go, I bet Haim will love this. And it took a lot of trust, and there's times it didn't go right, but we dabbled with that. And then suddenly there was a lot less worry and a lot less having to write and all that stuff, which made life a lot easier because we're naturally lazy. But this excitement every day and huge, it felt really like teamwork. And I don't love listening to radio where I feel that people are competing against each other in certain areas for laughs, that is, or attention. And it took, that kind of feeling for me in mid-2006 that suddenly I thought, oh, gosh.
That's a bold shot, isn't it? That's good. He's just showing you guys up. Sorry, I was just distracted.
But just on that, Andy, I think, it's been a constant learning curve for the producing team as well. Like, we've been working together since 2004, but there's still plenty of times where as a producing team, we sort of have to sit together and go, okay, if we tell them, how much do we have to let the guys know so that they know what we're doing and where we're going, and we get feedback on, are we on the right track here? Is this going to be a good idea? Is this what you had in mind? And how much are we going to kill it by telling them everything and then there's no fun? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, our general rule is don't tell us anything, which is hard for our producing team because it's hard for them to know what they're getting right and wrong. And so if something is going to go wrong, we prefer our show not being super slick. We like those real moments.
Well, I think because a lot of the stuff that we just naturally find funny too, and that's the other thing too, like a lot of the time we're choosing just to do stuff because we naturally find it funny, not because we're hoping for a desired outcome. I think the things we tend to gravitate towards in our show are things where the journey itself is funny. So sort of like if we know that it's possible to, theoretically go on a cruise ship and do the show, then after that we just don't really want to know anything because it's like, well, finding out everything about how we're going to make that happen is the fun part. Or like, trying to think of a song to play as a cover band, which is something we're working through at the moment. It's way more fun for us to spend 2 or 3 weeks to kind of like, to be figuring out the process with each other rather than do a lot of the cooking behind the scene and then going, here's a pie we've already made. For us, trying to figure out the ingredients of the pie live with the audience is a lot of the fun.
Which is tough for the producing team because they can feel like they're doing less. But and because we're saying, no, don't look into any of that. We'd like to discover it. But we've found a really good balance, and it comes with like constant dialogue and feedback sessions broadly, not about specific content, but when something happens and we left it all to chance, we come out the back of it and we'll go, okay, what could have we known? And we talk to our production team and go, actually, might have helped to know that something as simple as that person doesn't know their dad or whatever it might be, because we go in there and charging in and do a Father's Day thing. This is a terrible example, but didn't actually happen.
We didn't do this. We didn't do a surprise Father's Day thing to a kid that doesn't know his dad.
But it's as an example of key bits of information that won't take you in any different direction for where the fun is, but just will, obviously make things a little smoother as we go.
And I reckon it tied into this idea is we know that choosing things where we don't know how the outcome will be is riskier, because I think it's tempting to kind of go, well, I use a real example from the show from a long time ago. We ended up getting a greyhound. Our goal was we didn't sit down and go, we want to get a greyhound that wins some races and will be fun to go to greyhound tracks and have everyone there and supporting the greyhound, and then try and reverse engineer it from there. We just didn't have that idea, but it started with Andy being in a beauty pageant and us betting on him to win Claire Bachelor of the Year. But it just evolved from that space, and at no stage did we ever sort of go, shit, we shouldn't talk about this on air unless we know behind the scenes the outcome is guaranteed. Because I think there's a tacit understanding between the on-air team and the behind-the-scenes team that sometimes these things would just fall over. Sometimes we'll just have a fail, it will be a public fail, and it just won't go anywhere. But that's all right, because that's the price you pay for the ideas that you are kind of taking a bit of a risk on live and publicly. And then when they do pay off, the feeling and the atmosphere in the show is you can't get that with planning. You can't get that with manufacturing. That's an unmanufacturable feeling, which goes back to that authenticity. So then we are so excited, and that's kind of what we strive for. We try every day to hopefully plant a seed that somewhere along the line will grow into one of those really fun, authentic, inimitable moments.
Yep.
And if you don't call your shot, it can go anywhere.
Yeah.
So an example, if a show goes, we're going to write a song and we're going to get it to #1. It's if they don't get it to #1, it's deemed a fail.
Suddenly #3 would be a big fail.
Yeah, suddenly #3, which would have been awesome as well. So we like to plant lots of little seeds and see which ones grow. And there's plenty of times that we thought we had amazing ideas that would be the biggest thing we've ever done, and then 5 days later we realised it wasn't. But it can just be shuffled away because we didn't set out and call a shot. And we prefer to do it that way.
I mean, it's that thing of going, we just feel uncomfortable about letting the hype get too far ahead of the reality. Because it's A, it's no fun, and B, it just creates a problem for yourself.
Yep.
And if you call your destination, you can only really go one path to get there. Where if it's it can end up anywhere here, it's easy to have more fun, and also you can kind of create little wins along the way.
I might just pause here, and I'd like to play a quick video of something that we did almost this exact week last year. Well, coming up to this, November last year. It was a thing called The Race That Slows Down the Nation. Did anyone hear that on the radio or see it online?
Yes, I knew
a few nods.
Good. Nose pick, but thank you for almost listening.
I'd like to play a quick moment, and then I'm going to ask you guys a question afterwards.
Hello.
Hi.
Whee! Shit, I just remember we forgot to put the full video up.
I mean, I still get goosebumps watching that, but very much on theme with what you guys were talking about earlier. What a lot of people wouldn't know is that when we set out to do that idea, it was a very, very different idea.
It was.
Can you talk about that pivot?
Well, it was...
The idea to begin with was we wanted all different types of horses running in a handicap race. So a Clydesdale versus a Shetland versus a stallion versus a miniature pony.
Which started with Andy and I having a jacuzzi, actually, together, having a spa. And it started when we were like, wouldn't it be funny if we took over a turf club? I'm sure, we've travelled around the country enough times to you go to these country towns and there's often a racetrack that's just empty. It's imagine, at the same time as the spring racing carnival starting, what if we could go in one of these towns? I'm sure we could lease one, for a month for a few grand. They're just dust bowls. So we're like, oh my God, we could have the Hamish and Andy Turf Club. So we got so excited about having the People's Turf Club. and then having a shitty birdcage enclosure and stuff like that, that we thought that was where a lot of the fun was going to be, just this kind of like real lo-fi version of the Spring Racing Carnival. And then we came up with this idea for the race that was this staggered kind of time trial with 4 different horses. But as we started talking about it on air, we just were kind of like...
Well, it was really unsafe. And
all horse people immediately hated it. I mean, no, that's...
Apparently a horse won't run past a pony as well. Like
or
if
a donkey.
A donkey, yeah.
Because we wanted a donkey in the race.
If a donkey gets in front, a horse won't pass a donkey. I don't know why.
Suddenly all these logistical... Yeah, it's an honour thing. They're superstitious.
So it was going to be unfair because obviously the horse is faster, so they have to start from a back marker, but then they'd never run past the donkey.
Never run past the donkey. They get to the donkey and bow and, say, for your forefathers, sir, and he won't do it.
A lot.
So we learned a lot. But so this is an example of behind the scenes, a lot of logistics stuff's coming up that's just not... It's kind of funny, but it's not 3 weeks of funny to talk about these 4 different horses. And horse people were like, "This, we don't want any part of this." And it just suddenly... You just get a feeling for that sort of resistance.
Hate.
So we were sort of, that's the thing. When people are saying "fuck you," you just get a feeling that they're not on the same page.
But that's years of experience.
So then, on one day, someone rang up and was like, "Could we enter in a horse suit?" But because we were at that stage like a bit rigidly into this idea, because we were like, "This is going to need some pushing to get this idea up and running," we were sort of like, "Oh, okay, maybe you could have a horse suit," and we were a bit back and forth about it.
We're worried about that guy's safety as well.
Well, we're worried about that guy's safety, but we realised like
Clydesdale coming past him on the...
We're clinging to this idea that's clearly not working or even that funny of these 4 different abilitied horses. But suddenly people want in on this idea. People are saying, "Can we be part of this in a horse suit?" And we sort of realised that it was kind of flashing at us in the face going, well, yeah, like maybe this is just a lot funnier if it's horse suit driven. And so... we kind of on air explained the problems we were having and then sort of floated the idea of going, if this was just a horse suit race, how many people would be into it? And it kind of took off from there. Like everyone started going bananas. And then the stories of people traveling from Perth and the Northern Territory and stuff to win this $5,000 as a horse and bringing their horse suits down and elephants running and stuff.
And trainers and stable hands.
Yeah, different people coming and making this pilgrimage to this small country Victorian town to run in this horse suit race the day before the race that stops the nation for the race that slows down the nation. Then it just suddenly felt inclusive and fun, and we were not just kind of trying to force the idea that we'd had in the spa upon this.
Yeah.
And it got a life of its own. And those are the best ideas. Like when the idea gets a life of its own, you can feel it. Like you can feel it lift, and you're away.
I think it's a great example of how often some of the biggest problems we've faced have often become some of the best ideas.
Yeah.
I think, is it true, or am I making this up, the first day of the first Caravan of Courage, we realised Hamish didn't have his licence?
Yeah, the day before.
So about to drive across Australia.
More of a strategy. So I was just navigating with beers the whole way across Australia.
But I think that often we've sort of embraced something, and rather than just going, "Oh, it's funny, it didn't work," we've gone, "Well, how could that become?"
And
the
remember
idea?
when Andy was super ugly and we got him all that plastic surgery to win Bachelor of the Year?
I'm thinking more about.
The interesting thing is that, like, if you're comfortable with it all being real, again, if you're not sitting there going, "We have to get to this place," it can be really fun. We had 2 and a bit weeks of horse trainers ringing us up saying we're idiots, and that was a really fun part of this race slows down nation.
Wonderful back and forth.
Yeah, it's still really fun, and to me that's really fun to listen to. And if we'd sat down and worked all that out beforehand, that we just lose all that comedy and all that part of the journey.
And it comes back to going, what are you doing this for? Like, what are we putting this event on for? We're not putting it on because we are genuinely interested at an equine level about who's the fastest horse over which handicap. Yeah. We're putting it on because we want to have fun. Like, we wanted to have a big fun day and have our own race. And when the winds of fortune were sort of pushing us away from it, you just go, well, yeah, we still achieved the same goal.
Which sort of picks up on another question I wanted to ask. There's a lot of pressure on shows to have big ideas. There's a lot of, certainly a lot of meetings I'm in where it's, got to have big ideas that get the show talked about. I mean, Race That Slows Down the Nation was an example of a very, very big idea. But how important do you think that is for radio shows?
I reckon it's a curse.
Yeah.
I think if that's how the conversation starts, there's 1% that idea will be funny. There's a 1% chance that idea will be funny. If the conversation starts with what's a big idea we can do, it will be overthought, and it will be nervous. Its only goal is to be big, and the chances of it being big and funny are minuscule. But if the conversation starts with what's a fun idea we could do, and as a byproduct it happens to kind of be a large event, then fine. But I reckon it's a common mistake.
With every idea we have, we certainly leave it open to be able to grow as big as possible. You know, you never want to put any parameters on it, but calling again, making sure it's the biggest thing ever is a bit of a curse. I remember with 2006, our first year, and the show went really well, really quickly, which is a surprise to all of us. But yeah, I won the beauty pageant, which was a surprise. We won money because we bet on me, and then we said, well, should we do with the money? And someone suggested buy a greyhound, and we were just buying a greyhound next week. And then we're like, let's race it in Melbourne. It comes dead last. And so, we should take it on tour. We go to Brisbane, 1,500 people come and watch it, and it wins. And suddenly we're like, this is a whole new story. And then a guy rings up in Adelaide and says, I've got a greyhound called Nitrix, which will beat your greyhound. And so we've got this huge rivalry, fly him to Adelaide, and 2,000 people come and watch him beat Nitrix. And then across to Perth we go, because we're having so much fun with this, and 4,000 people come and watch this stupid dog have a little run around.
He's a great dog.
But none of that was ever planned, but you're leaving it open.
That's the thing.
And then 2007 came round, was the first meeting. Sam, you were there, and our bosses, and they go, great, now what's the greyhound idea for this year? And it's just the most daunting thing anyone could ever ask.
And that's how we got Steve, the racing falcon. It wasn't as great as Fred Bassett, the greyhound.
But in hindsight, the lesson, and we've said this since, back to the production team as well as our boss, it's just like, that is...
I don't know.
We don't know, and that is the most daunting thing anyone can be asked, because that was so good, and why are we even trying to beat that? With ideas, Haim and I try to never try and play in the same area again, because we know we're easily going to be compared to how good that one was last time.
Or we'll just fall into the same trap.
Same rhythm of jokes or same ideas.
So for us, a lot of the time, those meetings at the start of the year are just us going, I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what we think is funny yet, but we'll try. We'll keep our minds open. And then, but for us, our big, I suppose, 10 years ago, doing something sort of large on radio was maybe a little more novel back then than it is now, because it's sort of, like a lot of people do that sort of stuff.
Even leaving the studio was
like even people like doing Caravan of Courage, believe it or not, that was sort of groundbreaking to do a show not in the studio, but and sort of make it that road trip. But it wasn't. Nothing was ever. I don't think anything that we would look back and remember fondly was ever conceived of with bigness as the goal. If it happens as a byproduct, it's terrific. But it's probably a real curse to start the conversation.
But talking a bit more about the creative process then, do you think, we've worked a lot on having sort of content filters. So when we have a big idea, we then think about, we have a successful idea. We think about, why did we think that worked? And what were the funny bits? And why did it catch fire when another idea doesn't? How important do you think it is to have those sort of filters for shows?
Yeah, really important. And we're big on reviewing successes and the failures. We do analyse the show a lot, but never beforehand trying to guess where something would go. I think that's what we found comfortable. Of course, at times you need to see where the space is going and going, okay, well, let's not end up here. But more often than not, we like to go, just see where it goes, and then after it go, oh, okay.
There's no guarantee. I suppose it's that thing of going, we know there's no guarantees. After doing this for 10 years and analysing it retrospectively every time something happens, I think we've had enough data sort of roll through for us to go, a lot of it is random. But, so you can never go before an idea starts, this, quietly in the room, ice the champagne, this one's going to work. But the one thing you can, the only time ideas have worked, there was fun in the room. There was excitement in the room. We believed in it. It just made Andy and I laugh. Which sounds a little bit arrogant, but because it's at the end of the day, it's us sort of trying to bring it to the audience and have everyone get involved. If it doesn't make us laugh, we know there's zero chance of it really catching fire, because there's no authenticity behind it. But sometimes things have made us laugh a lot, and it just failed to jump that divide between us and the audience. And that's, we're making something for public consumption. There's so much luck involved. There's never a guarantee something will work, But if it's not funny to us, that's probably a guarantee it won't work.
So I wouldn't mind just pausing here and playing another video. Just to set this one up, late last year, we took 100 listeners, was it?
Yeah.
I think it was about 160.
106, I think you're right. 160 listeners on a cruise ship through the South Pacific. It was called the People's Cruise. And after a week of trying to win this game called Cash Crane, that I believe sat in a dark corner of the ship's casino.
It was on the gambling floor. I don't know if you guys cruise much, but it's sort of like a leagues club at sea. And there are opportunities for you to gamble while you're on board. Many.
We became addicted to this machine.
It's a skill tester that
if we were trying to look for the other person anywhere on the boat, you just go to the cash crane and
without a mobile phone, it was just easy to always find the other guy at cash crane.
Yeah.
But it's a skill tester that tries to pick up a brick of 100 $5 notes, sort of shrink wrapped together. Like all skill testers, it's tantalisingly frustrating. There were so many times when the brick was gripped and it fell that it was really doing our heads in.
And
we spent the whole week trying to win this thing.
No one in our whole team had won it, and everyone had tried.
All the listeners we took, everyone was just
And then
furious.
it became kind of mysterious because someone heard of someone on level 4 that actually did win it.
Like, they restack it in the morning. Like, get up at 6. You know, it couldn't be beaten.
And so, having tried hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times across all of our listeners, no one's ever got it. We thought we'd bring the cash crane onto the stage and play it live with people in their cars ringing up and saying just left and right.
See if we could vibe it out from people driving in Australia calling the ship in the middle of the South Pacific.
And towards the end of what was an 11-minute break...
Keep it tight, keep it right.
This happened.
Hello.
Hi.
Whee! Here we go, let's do it.
All right, forward, stop,
Forward. Okay, yep.
right,
And now,
Okay.
stop.
Oh, how do you feel about it, Ham? Do you want to direct Jordan any way?
I mean, Jordan, if you felt like saying right a little bit more,
Oh yeah, we'll go a little bit.
just a sniff.
Just a tickle, Ham. Just a tickle.
Okay, that's it.
Jordan, we're going down.
We're dropping,
Right.
Jordan. Here we go.
Here we go.
Oh my God! 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 Kiss me! Kiss me! Kiss me! Oh my God! Pandemonium! 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 We've done it! This is the greatest day of my career! This is the greatest day of all time! Jordan!
Ready to make it rain.
What a highlight! 3, 2, 1.
Make it rain! Pants up Friday. Hamish Andy cruising you home.
So, I mean, I think that's a great...
Thanks, guys. How do you keep your audience happy? You just throw money at them. And that is commercial radio.
It is. Your chance to play for $1,000 tomorrow in the quiz.
But I think, I mean, that's a great example of what you were talking about earlier, when there was literally hundreds of opportunities presented to us on the cruise ship of, things that could be funny, things that could be content, would the guys like to do this? How do we schedule that in? And none of us would have guessed that a shitty skill tester in the casino would provide the highlight moment on one of, the biggest things that we've ever done before.
And for us, like, as an example of sort of going, this is the joy of like why we want to do these things and why we enjoy doing these things. I mean, again, the cruise ship came about probably in a similar jacuzzi session. But it was, again, us going, do you reckon it'll be fun to go on a cruise ship? And, we all work in commercial radio. We know how these things normally go. You would think that's P&O coming to SCA going, can you do something? And us going, do we have to do a cruise? All right, we'll go on a cruise. But we went to Sammy and said, mate, we'd love to do a cruise. We just think it would be super fun to take 100 people on board a boat with 2,000 other people, like we're sort of stowaways, and see if we can win the boat over in the course of a week. And, again, because we have a brilliant team, they went and found a cruise line that would let us do this ridiculous idea. So we were just excited to be there. We were so pumped to be there. And at the end of the day, to have people with one $5 note that's like their memento of the trip and wanting to get it signed. That $5 note meant so much more to people because they've been on that journey with us than a normal person ringing up and winning, $8,000 on Beat the Bomb. And for us, like that's the total joy of radio to go, now that $5 note means, and we've still got one each, we've still got a $5 note from the cash crane. It means so much more than just, a kind of a normal dollars giveaway radio moment.
And it should never have happened. Like, we set that up there to go, okay, everyone will watch it, fail 4 times, and we'll go to a song.
We thought we were just going to end up booing the machine. We thought that's what we brought it out as a guest on the show, so we could all boo it, because we hated it. We end up that way.
Yeah. So I think the other thing we see in that video is the relationship between you guys, and you were
Sexual.
friends.
Just under the surface,
kiss me.
highly charged sexual tension.
It just finally bubbled over in that moment. But you guys, you were friends before you worked together. How much work have you had to do on that relationship, and what sort of conversations do you have to protect it from the performance relationship?
Certainly, kind of heading into 2007 after the show had gone well, and it was fine before that because we were just mucking around, which we still are just mucking around, but you get to realise that a lot of people are relying on this friendship. The friendship's all we've got. The show's just about friendship. Same with the TV show as well. And
I think people like Scoopler.
Yes, it's true.
Tune, 450.
It's 80% Scoopler, 20% friendship. No, so we did start to feel pressure, and it did change the way our friendship worked for a few years. Not with any tension or anything. It just was. We just preserved it. Checked in with each other a lot. It became, I suppose, more like a marriage when, a kid's coming along. You're like, suddenly this is more important now.
Well, it was just a weird thing. Yeah, this thing that had always been there effortlessly. Now we suddenly had to. We're like, well, we're not planning on breaking it. I don't think we're going to break it.
Yeah.
But I suppose it'd be like finding out that, a jar at home or a vase is worth $1,000. Be like, oh, right, it was a shitty jar. I mean, I don't break many vases, but I'll really try not to break that one. Like, you just become... It's a very odd thing for people that have just been mates at uni to go through, where suddenly your job is being friends, which is fine and has turned out to be super easy, but... And at the same time, it's sort of like, well, that's just a weird thing to have as your job. So you don't want to, you definitely don't want anything to damage it because you'd lose your job and a best friend. So that's a high stakes game. So
I think one area which we consciously worked on is because we don't tell each other anything to say, and there's kind of no limits to the kind of niggles we can get and things we bring up against each other or about each other. There's certainly times that happened early on where, I might bring up something and I could see him retreat and I'm going, oh shit, in the middle of chatting about this live, I can see in his face.
Don't bring up my 2005 tax return. Don't bring up my tax return.
And that can cause a little bit of uncomfortableness. And the worst thing Haim and I ever want, because, again, nothing's planned, is you can't have that little chink. If it happened early in the show, you've got to endure another 90 minutes. So we talked a lot about that outside of the show. And essentially, the rule became, if there's something you don't want me to bring up, you have to flag it when you tell me. Versus, you should have thought of that. We put the responsibility back on the other person. And so there's times still where Haim will bring up something or I'll bring up something where we shouldn't have, and I'll look at him with high eyebrows, but I'm taking the responsibility for that in that moment. I'm going, oh shit, I should have told you this, and this is bad. I shouldn't be saying this. But what it did was it freed us up to no one ever be upset with each other. In fact, it became far more caring because at the end of that break, I'll go, oh man, I should have told you I was meant to be at a wedding and I went to this thing instead. And we should
go to orgies instead of weddings.
Which is a very different feeling to if I was like, why the fuck did you bring that up? And so that was just a small example of the way we tried to work through things to preserve, A, the fun of the show, which is surprise each other with anything, and B, the friendship.
And I reckon, I know we're probably running a bit late, but because certainly with our type of show, and everyone's going to be different, but with us, no show is going to last for, hours on end, 5 days a week, if it's all about just prepared content. So the whole point of our show is our interaction. like knowing we've got our interaction sorted, like, and we just find it fun to talk to each other, and having the right amount of elements coming into the show that people can hold on to and that give us something to talk about and do and include other people. But we've always sort of gone, well, we know that a lot, because our natural style of humour, because we're best mates, is, and this is probably a bit of an Australian thing, is to sort of hang shit on each other and have fun with each other. We've always kind of, I think, intrinsically understood, and the analogy that we sometimes use when we hear something maybe on another show or in another part of life where people are doing a similar thing, is what we do is like WWF. Like, we're fighting, but we're not really fighting. Like, that's kind of what our show is. Like, that's the fun of it. We're actually mates. I'm not actually trying to knock Andy out. And he's not actually trying to break my arm. But sometimes I think people make the mistake in radio, and it comes because you're in the moment and you're live and you got nothing but your raw instincts. I think it can be dangerous when you're on air, maybe, and you're not mates with someone. We're like, sometimes people mistake that and they go, it sounds like to us, like it becomes a bit UFC instead of WWF. Yeah. And watching two mates actually break the other person's nose and the other person have a broken nose and the pain of their best friend having punched them in their face, in their eyes, is not fun for anyone to be part of. And it's not what we want to do.
This sums up our English quickly, Sammy. It's like, I'll be ribbing Hamish about something on air, and then we go out together, and if someone walks up in the pub and ribs Hamish about the same thing...
We'll break a chair on his head.
Yeah.
WWF.
No, but quite seriously, I'll be the first to step in and go, hey, mate, like, there's a very different feeling when your best friend is sitting there...
There's permission.
Yeah, permission versus someone else.
I might just try and squeeze one more video in before we throw over to questions. This was one of the strangest things we've done on the show.
Personal favourite.
I believe it started, the Nug Raid, as it was called, started with, there was just a rave on air, I think, where
there was actually a Nugget war going on.
Well, I mean, everyone would have been aware of this last year, not from our show, but just in society.
Yeah.
All major fast food chains suddenly out of nowhere were offering 20 nuggets for about $10. And it just,
variations of
and it just seemed insane. We went, what is going on? Why is there a nug war out there? Who's going to win the nug war? Then more volleys got fired, then more attacks got happened. And it's one of those examples where sometimes you have a little idea in the back of your head that just never doesn't seem right, and you kind of file it away. And like years and years ago, we had talked about, could you denug a store? Like, could you, if you organise a bunch of friends, could you go to a Macca's or a Hungry Jack's or something and just everyone eat as many nuggets as they could, to the point where they said, I'm sorry,
we're out of
nuggets. You've denugged us. We're out of nuggets. So it kind of resurfaced during all this discussion about the nug war of going,
well, it's now affordable.
If there was ever a time to do this, it's at a time when cut price nuggets are being offered. We should try and denug a store.
And so, look, I'll play just a little video of it. And I think, I mean, from a producing point of view, the most difficult thing about this was for our team to work with our sales team, who were fantastic, to try and find a client that would let us do it in one of their stores but not tell any of their staff members. So have a look at the genuine, because the guys were very clear on, this isn't funny if they're ready for us.
This is not for a client. We were like, this is not, we don't care whose nugs we go to. Like, I understand we need permission so we don't get arrested. Yeah. So that's fine. Like, maybe a head office has to know somewhere, but this is not for us to sit down and go, these nuggets are delicious. In fact, whoever volunteers for this was probably going to have their nuggets spewed back.
So just look out for the genuine look of shock on the face of the restaurant.
Hello.
Hi.
Whee!
It was a chicken crusade of epic proportions.
Could 70 barbarians on a bus eat an unsuspecting fast food restaurant completely out of chicken nuggets?
Brave barbarians, this is what we've thought about, this is what we've talked about.
This is what you've been training for unknowingly every time you ate a chicken nugget in the past.
They may deep fry our nuggets, but they'll never deep fry our freedom.
What do we say to nuggets?
Nuggets were slain left, right and centre.
3,000 nugs have been army was depleted. Troops were battered, bruised, and more accurately, completely stuffed. The Nugget invasion was relentless.
After 2 hours, a final address had to be made.
You have gone through, well, including the 500 in front of us, 4,600 nuggets. That is an incredible amount of nuggets and something we will have forever. And remember, as soon as we take these ones out in the boxes, we've completely cleared them out of nuggets, even if they haven't got it in our mouths just yet.
You're not judged by win or loss. You're judged by how you held yourself on the battlefield.
And how you can twist the story after the event to give yourself the win.
That's exactly right.
And that is exactly what we've done here today, guys. An amazing eating effort and an even cleverer twist to give ourselves the victory. To victory!
Yeah, we should point out, turns out under the rules of nug rating, you can take some away. So with 500 takeaway nuggets on board, yeah, we won, didn't we?
Yeah. No, we lost.
We lost, and God, there was a lot of vomit.
So we're into negative 40 seconds. Can someone just give me a thumbs up? Can we go for another couple of minutes for questions from the room? That's fine. I'm getting a good thumbs up there. Great. Who would like to ask a question? In front here, they've got a microphone for this lady.
Just yell it out, we're pretty close. I know,
goes the mic.
yell it out into the mic.
I'll go with the mic.
Yeah, that sounds better.
One thing that I've always greatly admired about the two of you is that your style on air has never been one that's been at the expense of other people, your style of humour, unlike some other radio duos. But my question is, I guess, twofold. One, is that a conscious decision? And two, how do you walk that line?
It wasn't a conscious decision. Same with being family friendly. It wasn't really a conscious decision. It's just where Hamish and I liked playing the best. We've always loved the idea of anything we say on air, we'd say to someone's face. And look, you can be cheeky with people and rib them, but hopefully it's in a good nature.
I reckon it comes from our group of mates. Like a lot of just what we naturally find funny is teasing our friends. But, I guess over time that you just naturally gravitate towards the kind of jokes that you would happily make towards someone's face. And a lot of the time it's just hanging shit on each other, and that other person is obviously in the room at the time. So, maybe it just, it doesn't feel like it needs to be nasty because it's just a bit easy to be nasty sometimes, but it doesn't make us comfortable. It doesn't make us go, God, that was so much fun being cruel to someone. And we're also there to have fun.
May have also stemmed from, we had a failed TV show when we first started. We got bagged relentlessly in the press and on TV shows at the time. Shows like The Glass House, we were like the butt of jokes. It was bizarre, and you're watching that going, oh, gee, this feels a bit harsh when you kind of...
At the same time, some of them were pretty good jokes.
Yeah. And so we definitely had worn the other side of that fence, and so it seemed to us, not the direction we wanted to go in.
Great question, thank
Really
you.
good question.
Hand up for another question. Anyone?
God,
This is going to be an awkward... They've put another 3 minutes on the clock. If we don't have any more questions, it's...
3 minutes of 20.
There we go,
Hey,
thank
well done.
goodness. And maybe while we're getting a question from this young man, we're getting a microphone to him. Who would like to ask the next question so we can already have a microphone
That's clever.
to you? See, that's producing.
We call that banking calls in radio.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey guys, how are you?
Hey,
Good, thanks, mate.
I'm well, thanks. So before you found the greatest Aussie bloke in Australia, and let alone the world, and then you sort of followed it up with he came over, you had 2 beers, and you had 3 people, and he sort of proved himself again by offering you the 2 beers. I wanted to know, how long is it before a joke loses its shelf life? Because you did say the best ideas are the ones that don't really have a planned procedure in place.
Yeah.
It's something that sort of happens over time. So when is it the shelf life runs out?
Great question. Really good question. I think we've
Do you want to explain the idea?
For people that didn't hear it really, really quickly, we just had an idea. If we called a random number, I pretend I'm a guy called Tim. This guy, James, happens to answer. I said, mate, I'm about to go into a job interview. If you get a call asking you about me, my name, was it Tim Barnard?
Yeah.
My name's Tim Barnard. Just say you know me. Not really thinking anything would happen to this. This guy that happened to answer, James, goes, yeah, no worries, sweet, mate, I got you back. And he calls back pretending to be the accounting firm that Tim was going for a job at. And this guy, James, launches into an astonishing review of this fictional guy, Tim, to the point where he was
Wonderful reference.
So good at picking the right things to say without being called out on it. Andy was saying, I know Tim speaks 2 languages, and then oh, he's like, yeah, right, I know English is one. What's the other one? So, I mean, he was phenomenal, right? So that kind of, you never know what things are going to catch fire. We put a little video of those phone calls up on the internet, and a few other places picked it up. So he was getting labelled Australia's best bloke, which he was. We were very excited to have randomly run into this guy, James.
But we did, so yeah, we're kind of always want to be the first to pull back and from an idea. We'd never want to over-egg them. And this one, because it had kind of 70 million views of this video around the world, and it was in all news,
and
it's the first
picked
time
up by Lad Bible and a few of those UK places. So
it was the first time ever we've gone, gee, this is actually big enough for us to invite this fellow back in.
But it's a real interesting call because of this new world where, like, the last thing you want to do is seem like desperate to get this, you know, viral attention, which we're really not. Like, we're very happy for things to get spread, but we're like, you begin to tread a little cautiously because of how easily the charge of you just pushing this too hard could be leveled against you. And we don't want to be the only guys going, oh my God, how amazing is this guy? While the rest of the world's going, yeah, but there's funny things that happen every day, so we've moved on, so get over yourselves. So it's that very kind of like, you want to go right up to the edge of the line without going over it. If you're the loudest person at the party yelling, how funny are we? And everyone else has left, it's a real situation no one wants to be in. But so we kind of made the call with that guy that, like, all right, enough people know about this now. No other radio show is going to get him on to go, what was it like being on Hamish and Andy?
But we had a little safety net there. So the second part of it was like we went to the song and we said to this guy, hey mate, thanks so much for coming in, really appreciate your time. We thought we'd crack a beer with you. Opened the esky, there were only 2 beers. And we said to him, oh gosh, sorry, there's only 2 beers. And he turned to us and said, you guys have them. And then we just celebrated that he's the best guy in the world again. But
we slugworthed him, if you're familiar with the end of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And if you're not, I won't spoil it. It's a great film.
But we pre-recorded that in the song, and so we're going to review it and go, is this good enough to put out again? Do we find this funny enough? Because again, we don't want to be the ones trying to flog this dead horse. If the moment's already happened, we don't want to look like the ones pushing it hard again. But it did tickle our fancy again, and that's normally the filter we put it through. It's like, yeah, I'm finding this funny still.
Essentially, we're like, this is good enough to put up if we think it's funny. But if there's even a sniff of us going, well, we're only putting this up because we'd like to continue the notoriety that we're getting from this film, from this video going around. Like, if we're honest with ourselves and that's the motivation, you got to scratch it, because that's when that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Great question. Okay, we're gone over time again, but I guess just to finish up on behalf of the 3 of us, thanks to Joan and the team at CRA for having us here. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and if you wouldn't mind giving another round of applause to Hamish.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
I hope that was something.